Hello, today we will be doing the IGCSE History Treaty of Versailles core content topic. This will be tested in paper 1 of the IGCSE exams. And the first topic will be was the Treaty of Versailles justified? The Treaty of Versailles was a peace treaty signed on June 28, 1919. It was the most important of many peace treaties signed after World War One. This ended the state of war between Germany and the Allied powers. The first term of the treaty. There were many terms of the treaty. However, they could be split into economic, military, territorial, and other terms. For example, the War Guilt Clause. The first section will be the military terms. The military terms included no U-boats, no tanks, no planes, 100,000 men in the army, 15,000 men in the navy, 6 pre-dreadnought battleships, and no conscription. This effectively made Germany an ineffective fighting force that could never possibly wage wars on its allies effectively, and also could never challenge British naval superiority in the seas anymore. Economic terms of the Treaty of Versailles include a £6.6 billion war reparations and also 42 installments, which was supposed to be paid in 42 installments. It included 16. It also included a loss of 16% of its coal production, large amounts of its agriculture, and also 50% of its iron and steel manufacturing. This effectively crippled the German economy and also made sure it can never pay back its war reparations to the Western Allies. Territorial terms included the loss of Alsace-Lorraine, which was gained from France in the Franco-Prussian War in 1871, and then France, and it was given back to France in this treaty. Northern Schleswig, which was gained from Denmark in the Northern Schleswig War before the Franco-Prussian War, it was given back to Denmark in a plebiscite, and the plebiscite vote was mainly supportive of going back to Denmark. Therefore, it was returned back to Denmark. Danzig was made a free city. The port of Danzig was made a free city, so it could give. However, Poland could import and export things through the port. As part of the treaty, it gave Poland access to the sea. The Polish corridor also splitted Germany in half, with East Prussia and the rest of Germany. East Prussia was now isolated, and its biggest city in East Prussia was Königsberg, now modern day Kaliningrad. The Saarland was made a League of Nations mandate, which means it was managed by the League of Nations Mandate Commission, and after 15 years it will be put up to a plebiscite. Let the population decide who they want to join, either Germany or France. Germany also lost all its colonies, and they were made into mandates and given up to Britain and France. In total, Germany lost 10% of its land and 13% of its population. Other terms of the treaty include Article 231, which was the War Guilt Clause. This effectively placed the blame on Germany for all the wars. Germany also could not enter the League of Nations until it had proven it was a peace-loving nation. They abolished the monarchy, so the Hohenzollern family and the kings would be abolished and replaced with a democracy. In fact, the democracy was based out of Weimar, the city of Weimar, and the Weimar Republic was one of the first few countries in Europe to give women the rights to vote. They were also forbid Anschluss, which is union between Austria and Germany. So there were 3 big players at the Paris Peace Conference. They were Lloyd George of Britain, George Clemenceau of France, and Woodrow Wilson of the United States. This big 3 often had conflicting goals and ideas for how peace would look like in the end, and we'll see the conflict. Lloyd George wanted a weak German navy that could never threaten Britain in the seas again. All of Germany's colonies, as Britain was a colonial power and wanted to expand its empire. A strong German economy that would not be crippled, because the the German economy because Lloyd George saw Germany as an important trading partner in the future to help rebuild the British economy after the war, as the British economy was heavily damaged due to the First World War. Make sure that Germany could still defend itself and prevent the spread of communism towards Western Europe. However, he also wanted to make Germany pay and satisfy the public, as the public, which included the wives of husbands and the mothers of children who died in the First World War, were definitely want to see Germany not get off scot free from the war, and therefore he wanted to show that he'll make Germany pay for their for their crimes against, I don't know, but yeah. George Clemenceau was the hushers of the Big Three. He wanted extremely high reparations since the war was fought on French soil. That meant that a lot of the damage was done to France during the war. Therefore, he wanted high reparations to pay for the damages and help rebuild the French economy. He also wanted a crippled German army that can never threaten France ever again. As history has shown, France and Germany had never had a good relationship, fighting each other, and he wanted to make sure that Germany could never ever beat France like they did in the Franco-Prussian War. Therefore, wanting a crippled German navy, crippled German military on land as well. He also wanted an independent Rhineland that would serve as a buffer state between Germany and France. That will give France the time to prepare for war in case Germany decided to ever attack again. The overall, George Clemenceau wanted a crippled Germany that could never threaten France ever again, and make sure that war could never break out between France and Germany. The last of the three was Woodrow Wilson of the United States. Since the United States had joined the war in 1917 and suffered the least casualties out of the Big Three at 175,000, of the Woodrow Wilson did not have the need to punish Germany as severely, as the USA was far away and did not suffer much damage to its economy. In fact, the US came out stronger after the war, which can definitely show in the terms after show in the terms. For example, he wanted less harsh reparations to make sure that the German economy would not be crippled, and make sure that Germany still could defend itself with a sizable army. This is because he wanted to avoid German retribution in the future. He also wanted to implement his 14 points and a League of Nations that will prevent future wars ever again. As part of Wilson's 14 points, there were some key points that were important. For example, freedom of the seas, which was heavily opposed by Britain; self-determination, which was mainly opposed by the two colonial powers, Britain and France, as they did not want to see their empire lose their colonies; the independence of Poland, an establishment of a League of Nations that will prevent wars; open diplomacy without secret treaties; and free trade. As the USA was one of the most powerful economies, free trade would benefit the US greatly. However, after the treaty was ratified, many Germans were very angry at the treaty. This was because many felt that Germany could not defend itself from external threats, and then they felt that the treaty was way too harsh on Germany. For example, crippling its economy with a debt that was so big that they could never pay it back again. Many felt that the Germany should not have took full blame for the war, as it was Austria who started the war, and Germany was just upholding its allianceship with Austria. It also damaged national pride, as the weakening of Germany's military was a direct jab at Germany's national pride, as the military holds a very important place in German culture. To quote a famous Prussian general, Prussia was an army with a country, not a country with an army. That showed how important the army was to the core identity of Germany. They also felt that the treaty was a diktat when German representatives were not invited to the Paris Peace Conference, and that the treaty was hypocritical. As part of Wilson's 14 points, which granted self-determination to other countries, the treaty also forced 13% of Germany's population out of the borders of Germany, which was against self-determination, as Germans were being ruled by foreign foreign and non-German leaders. So, due to the immense debt of the Treaty of Versailles, Germany could not possibly pay back its debt. In fact, it defaulted on its second debt. That meant that Germany could not pay war reparations, and that made Belgium and France quite pissed off. So they decided to invade or occupy the Rhineland. I mean the Ruhr, with 6 divisions. The Due to the occupation, since the German people who lived in the Ruhr did not like the occupation, they decided to went on strike in the factories and did not produce anything that would help the French get their reparations worth. So they decided to go on strike. However, because the Ruhr was an important industrial area in the loss of economic output severely crippled the German economy, and the German government decided to print money to to help float the economy. However, they printed too much money, and that led to hyperinflation, causing life savings to be wiped out in overnight. If you look at the value of the German mark, in 1923 it went from 10,000. In 1922 it went from around 100 gold mark in paper to over a lot of zeros over there. And you can see this man counting his money. That shows how bad the hyperinflation was. There was other treaties that are not going to be covered in the syllabus. However, they might be useful in an essay. For example, knowing the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk could show how hypocritical the German were when complaining about the treaty, as they imposed a harsher treaty. The Treaty of Brest-Litovsk caused Russia to lose 50% of its industrial land, 90% of its coal fields, compared to Germany's 16%. 26% of its railways, and 34% of its population, compared to just 13% of Germany's population loss. Another treaty which could be used to argue that the Treaty of Versailles was relatively tame was the Treaty of Saint-Germain-en-Laye, which basically broke down the Austro-Hungarian Empire, compared to Germany, which was able to stay unified as one country. And the limiting of Austria's army, which showed that Germany's military terms were relatively generous, as Austria was only limited to 30,000 men compared to the German 100,000.